This video is going to walk through two different examples of including math in formal technical writing. The first section will talk about how to include equations, introduce equations, and the second will be how to walk through sample calculations using those equations. So first, a few pointers and reminders about including equations. Every unique equation gets numbered, corresponding to the number corresponding to the order that it's presented in the document. In formal technical writing, there are three different types of items that get numbered in this way. You can have a figure, which can be a graph, a diagram, or a photograph. Those get numbered. You can have tables, pretty self-explanatory, and you get equations. Microsoft Word has a fairly robust tool for numbering figures and tables, and the process that we're going to step through here to get the formatting right for equations is a little less straightforward. So each equation is on its own line and is centered, and the part that gets a little convoluted in Microsoft Word is that in addition to the equation itself being centered, the number associated with the equation gets placed at the right margin. Equations are the general relationship governing some phenomenon. They do not include units. You need to have some sort of explanatory text that includes the equation number, needs to introduce each equation, and that has to occur before the equation. For example, equation 1, the example we're going to use, is going to be Hooke's law, so you need a sentence that says equation 1 relates the stress and strain in a material. That has to occur before you present the actual equation to give your reader some context of what's coming up. Also, like with acronyms, every symbol that you use in an equation must be defined as they're introduced. Equation Editor takes care of italicizing the symbols as appropriate within the actual equation, but then if you use those symbols, like for the definitions outside of the actual equation, you have to remember to italicize the mathematical symbols, any Greek letters or variables, italicize those by hand. And throughout the remainder of the text, if you refer to equation 1 or equation 2 by number, you need to capitalize the word equation. One other note with formatting details that you often run into in technical writing is scientific notation. Now, in MATLAB or in other code, there are a number of ways that you implement that may use a caret or the asterisk for multiplication. Those have no place in technical writing. The only appropriate ways to express scientific notation are the ones on the left, where you have a number, the times symbol, and 10 to the exponent, or an engineering style notation where you use a capital E for the shorthand. All of these others on the right hand side should not appear in formal technical writing. So at this point, I'm going to pull up our sample document and work through inputting a equation into a formal document. Now again, as I said, the equation we're going to use for this sample document is Hooke's law, and the first step that we do is to write write a sentence that introduces the equation. This is the first one that we're going to do, so it will be equation 1. We've got an introduction section. I've got just some filler text that would be talking about the lab experiment that you've done or other introductory information, and we're going to say equation 1, also known as Hooke's law, relates the stress and strain in a material. So that's where You've got your reference by number and a little bit of text giving the context for the equation that you're introducing. All right, the next step is to actually incorporate another sentence that includes the equation. We're going to put the equation in first, and the way we format this to get around the centered equation and the right justified number is actually to insert a 3-cell table. We're going to put the number in the right-hand cell, so click in the right-hand cell. The number goes enclosed in parentheses, and back on the Home tab, right justify the number. And then in the center cell, we are going to insert an equation, and we want a new equation. So at this point, a few more reminders or pointers. Word says type the equation here. You take your cursor into that section, and you'll be very tempted to use some of the keyboard characters that are available, like equals or parentheses or the braces, and resist the temptation to do so. Anything that you type in other than regular characters need to be from the symbol section up here. So this one, we need our Greek letter sigma. We need our equals sign, and we need the capital letter E for Young's modulus, and then we need an epsilon. That's our equation. If we were doing an equation that required embedded brackets or other fractions or superscripts or subscripts, make sure that you use the functions in Equation Editor, because it will scale either the parentheses or the fractional elements properly. So that's our equation. We now select the table, and in Table Tools, in the design, we want to turn off the borders, and that leaves, in most versions of Word that I've worked at, that leaves these dotted grid lines. They show up in the document on screen, but they do not show up in the printed document unless you are printing to a PDF. In some cases they do. You can also turn these off under Table Tools, Layout, View Grid Lines. Turn that toggle off, and you end up with an invisible table that accomplishes the formatting of having the equation centered and the number right justified. We're not quite done yet, because we still need a sentence that includes the equation and defines all of the variables that are used. Now, this is another sort of oddity of math formatting, is even though this has a number and a carriage return in the midst of it, you treat it as if it was included in a regular sentence. So this relationship is sigma equals E times epsilon, and then below that we're going to continue the sentence where insert symbol sigma is stress and symbol epsilon is strain. Now, a couple of formatting things that we need to change. We need to force that to be a lowercase w, because this whole segment is acting as if it were a single inline sentence. The other thing that we need to change is the italics on the sigma keyboard shortcut Control I, and the epsilon. Now that is a complete two-sentence structure that has the equation introduced by number, some explanatory text, and a sentence that includes the equation and defines the elements in this.